Hello again, everybody. This is Steve coming to you with another intro to writing video. This one is about history. This is aimed at those of you who write books. Whoa, you thought I was going to say write fiction, historical fiction? No, this is true. This is true of anything. It doesn't matter if you're in fantasy, sci-fi, you do real history, you do alt history. The thing is, when it comes to writing, every one of your books, your stories, your worlds, they're going to have history. Now, that being said, those of you who write alt history and who write, historical fiction, you're going to have a bigger onus on this than somebody who does, say, sci-fi or fantasy. Covering the first two real quick. With sci-fi and fantasy, you're going to have some kind of history in there, some kind of back history, some kind of backstory. Where did they come? Who's this kingdom? How long have they been there? How were they started? Who's their king? Who was their past kings? Things like that. They're going to have a history. Same thing with sci-fi. You have like the Gorlan Republic and stuff. Where did it start? How did it form? Who were its leaders? What's been its history? Are they, warmongers? Or are they peaceniks? Or what are they? You're going to have history, and you're going to create history, and you're going to need to make sure you stay historically accurate. Now, obviously, you're going to make the history, but you have to stay historically accurate. Now, as far as book types, if you're doing a single book, keeping the history straight is pretty easy. You start doing a 2-book series, a 3-book series, a trilogy, 4-book series, quadrilogy, 5 and beyond, which is a super series. You're going to have history, not just of the backstory of the book. You're going to have history from the standpoint of what has already happened. Because as those items happen in the book, they become history, and you have to keep that historically accurate in your story. That's where good copious notes come in handy, and go crazy on your notes. Too many notes is not a bad thing. Not enough notes can be. So, like I said, that's they say that that becomes canon. That becomes part of the it becomes canon. It becomes part of the story and everything. And if you mix something up, or you mess something up, or get something in your history wrong later on in the story, your readers are going to crucify you. Some more than others. Some will go, "Oh yeah, he made a little mistake here," and others are just going to tie you to a stick and roast you over a fire. So. Or just come in and drop a Hiroshima nuke on you or something. But anyways, you got to keep that stuff straight. Keep it accurate. Keep it as well as you can. I don't expect everybody to do it perfectly. I don't even do it perfectly, and I keep a decent amount of notes. Probably should note more, but I do keep a decent amount of notes. And I will, like I say, I have a bad habit of flipping things over, mixing them up, getting them changed up and stuff, and not intentionally, just for some reason my brain just skips a gear and goes a different direction. Suddenly I'm one character's turned into another character, and the dialogue's flipped and stuff like that. So I don't do that as much as I used to, but I used to do it real bad back in the beginning. So yeah, you have to make sure you stick to the canon and stick to the story and everything. Now, as far as alt fiction or alt history and real history, where you're doing fiction within history, like Gone with the Wind is a great example of historical fiction. It happened during a real time in history, during real events in history, but it was a fictitious story. Those you have to stick to them like glue, and you have to stick to the history like glue. So, like, say for example, you do a Civil War drama, and you're up there around Gettysburg. And you got two people out on the lawn having a picnic on the day that they're supposed to have Gettysburg, and instead you've got Congress in Washington arguing over something that didn't actually happen in history. Now you've got people that are all ticked off because you just screwed up history. Because history is documented. It's in writing. It's going to be kind of the same thing for people who write sci-fi and fantasy. They're going to have that documented history that they have to go on. Even if even if they created it themselves. So, history is something that, like I say, in fantasy and sci-fi, it's called canon. In history and alt history, it's called facts. It's still called history, but it's facts. It's documented facts and historical events and everything that you can't alter. Except in the case of alt history. Even then, you still have to follow the details of the time period. If certain things happened before the time when your story starts, you're still bound to those. Once you start changing history, you're still bound to the flow of history. You're not bound to history in all of its accuracy. So, like, for example, let's go back to the Civil War. This is a good one, an easy one for me, because I love this. I love studying the Civil War. But anyways, let's say you go back. You send a team back in history, or a team accidentally gets sent back in history, and they come into the Civil War, and they've got like 100 guys, 200 guys. And the Confederates, I think, were marching in with like 60,000 troops. If you're, like, say, even if you got 1,000 guys going up against 60,000 troops, but your 1,000 guys have modern weapons, okay, you've just got infantry level firearms. You're basically light infantry. You just got machine guns. You've got grenades. You've got not rocket launchers, but like grenade launchers and stuff like that. You got to consider you got somebody who's got modern weaponry, with rifles that have 300 to 400 yard accurate lethal range, and grenades and grenade launchers. You've got machine guns. You've got BMG 50 cals, Ma Deuces and stuff that can reach out 2,000, 2,500 yards against guys with muzzle loading cap-lock rifles. Cap-lock or hammer-lock. I can't remember exactly what they call them, but basically it's you slip the cap over the nipple, and then the hammer comes down on it, and it fires the black powder charge inside. But anyways, those things you could fire 3 to 4 rounds a minute, depending on the individual. If somebody was like really stupid crazy fast, you could probably get 6. The problem was they were lethal out. Even though they were lethal out to 500 yards, the accuracy just went out the door beyond 100 yards. Your chances of hitting somebody beyond 100 yards was like nil. And if you did shoot somebody, it was because it was a whole line of them, and the bullet kind of shifted to the left and got the guy next to the dude you were aiming at. So, you could still hit him at 500-600 yards. Your just chances of actually, hitting what you were aiming at was, like I say, just completely went out the door beyond 100 yards. Now, you get some guys, like I say, that have got ranges of, 450, 550 yards of effective maximum range with high level of accuracy, 30-round magazines, machine guns that can reach out 1,200 yards, and then you've got the big stuff that's 2,000, 2,500 yards. Confederate Army ain't going to have a chance. They could have walked into Gettysburg, and your 1,000 guys are sitting down there, and they open up on the Confederates, and the Confederates are going to come out of there in body bags. That 60,000-man army's just getting eaten for breakfast. And those guys don't even have to sit there and go unless they get too close. They just sit there and let the riflemen pick them apart. The riflemen will sit there long before those Confederates could ever get within accurate, effective range, and just pick them off. Because they're walking in lines. The military guys from the present are going to be, they're going to be ducking cover. They're going to be down there digging trenches. They're going to be digging foxholes. They're going to be taking advantage of the land. They're not going to be standing up like shooting, or like ducks in a shooting gallery. They're going down. They're going to stay down where they're safe. They got Kevlar helmets. They've got body armor, all that kind of stuff. And you stick them up against a Confederate army of 60,000. Those 1,000 guys are just going to, like I say, eat those dudes for breakfast. No need for artillery. No need for anything special like that. Just a regular infantry division. That would have been about a brigade. Oh, let's say 1,000 of them. No, if I remember the strength of companies, it's 250 men per platoon, if I'm remembering this right. That might have changed. So 1,000 men would be 4 platoons. So part of a company, not even a full company, because I think a company's like 8 or 10 platoons. But now, one, they're going to fight in a way that is effective compared to what the Confederates would have used. They would have fought spread out, lay down on the ground, doing the shoot, move, and communicate to advance on the enemy. So you're going to get up, you're going to have covering fire while you get up and run. Then you're going to hit the ground, and you're going to start shooting in your forward position while your buddies come up behind you one at a time, and all of the modern military tactics against 1850s, 1860s tactics. Because, like I say, obviously they had to fight Napoleonic style because of the weapons they had and the limitations they had. Army guys don't have that problem. And then you stick the Marines out there, and that's really going to be a one-sided butt-kicking contest. And that's one example of alt history. There's another alt history I know of. I don't know if she ever got it published, but I remember my publisher getting the initial rough draft of it, and I don't know how much further it went from there. But her alt history was that she went out into 1840s, 1850s Wild West, but she blended actual history of the Wild West with orcs, goblins, and trolls and stuff like that. It was fantasy meets American history. Really interesting concept. Like I said, I don't know if it ever made it to publishing. She got him the rough draft, and that's the last I heard about it. So I don't know if it went any further or what. But the concept was really, really super interesting. And that's a different type of alt history. You can do alt history in the sense of, like, Aquaman is a type of alt history. Strange as that sounds. Because Aquaman basically takes the story of Atlantis and spins it as though this actually happened, and here's how it's interacting with the real world as Atlantis becomes discovered again. So that's a type of alt history. But yeah, when you go into actual historical fiction, though, you have to have real solid historical accuracy. And again, sci-fi and fantasy has a little bit of breathing room on that, because all you have to do is keep within your canon, unless some of your canon spills over into real-world history. Like I've seen, like even in my Earthfleet book, series, I should say, there are things from there that had to align perfectly with actual history. Like the Sergenius, I'm trying to remember, the Sergenius first came about right around the same time as the SR-71 was being put into service. And there's kind of a joke in the book about who came first, the Sergenius or the SR-71, and the fact that they kind of it was two sides of the same coin. There was society people down in America working on that project, and then there were people in the society who were working on the Sergenius, which was kind of the alternate to the SR-71, and they were kind of competing against each other indirectly. There's the Nixon incident with Mike, that shortly after Nixon entered his presidency, Mike snuck in and got the signature of President Nixon, and successfully got in, got the signature, and got out without being caught, except for the fact he got caught by his instructors, because the guys who put him up to the challenge also narked him out. I mean, that part's not told in the story, but that's kind of the backstory that I have on why he came back, or when he came back, they were standing there waiting for him, is because he got narked out. But anyways, there's a lot of just different ideas and stuff for that. Let me think here. Oh, yeah. When I was doing First Dawn, that I actually had to do a lot of research on, just to make sure I was going to be entering that part of history correctly. Now, there's not a lot that they do in that part of history, because it's like right around the beginning of the 1800s. But I still had to do the research to figure out, would the one part of my story match up to that time period, or would it not? So I've had to kind of do my own alt history, but from a sci-fi perspective. So I had to make sure that all lined up correctly. Land of the Lions. That was another big one that I had to do, be careful with my history on. Obviously the history I created for it, but I still had to be careful with the history. The big part was making sure that that when they went back in time, what happened back there matched up to other history in the book, including the prequel, so that I wouldn't contradict what I had already written, and I also wouldn't write myself into a corner for the next book after that. So that's situations where even I've had to do that. But again, that's kind of fun because, the research is fun. The writing is fun, especially the challenge of writing around established facts and established history, either made by you or made by someone else, or made by just history itself. I mean, even in the Star Wars universe, there's two groups of stories basically. There's the canon and then there's the Apocrypha. The Apocrypha is stories that were approved for publishing by by Disney, and then by Lucasfilm before that. They were stories that were approved but weren't actual Star Trek canon. Or not Star Trek, excuse me, Star Wars canon. Sorry, didn't mean to make you Star Wars fans twitchy on that. It's established history. And they had to, if they wanted it to be a story that was in canon, they had to follow the history of Star Wars. If they wanted to kind of diverge a bit from that, they could write Apocrypha, but they had to get it approved for release within that universe. Star Trek does that. Going back to Star Trek, since I flubbed that one. I was thinking ahead to Star Trek, that's why I said that instead of Star Wars. With Star Trek, there's a lot of sticking to history. You've got Star Trek Destiny. They've got a lot of Star Trek canon they've got to keep in line with. Star Trek Enterprise went back and was telling a lot of the history that had already been told elsewhere, so they had to keep true to that. There's alt history even in Star Trek, because you see them going over into the alternate universe and stuff. That's a way to do alt history right there. Take the main timeline, jump them over to a different dimension where, this uses that, like I mentioned before with time, this uses the parallel time theory that one universe went one direction, one universe went a different direction, and time split at some point, and you have the main timeline, you have a different timeline, like in Star Trek you have the main, you have the Kelvin timeline, you have the Imperial Earth timeline, and there's a couple other ones like that. So, and then even in Star Trek Voyager, you've got the original Journey Home, and then you've got the series canon one, the one that's actually in the show, and then you have the original Journey Home. Admiral Janeway goes back in time and tells her younger self how to defeat the Borg and get home sooner. So therefore, now time has split because she interfered with time. You have her original timeline, and then you have the one that was in the show that was then altered so that she wouldn't have, or her and her crew wouldn't have to go through that 10, 12 years that it took to get home, and instead they could jump through a transwarp conduit and back home they get. But I'm trying to think of some other things I wanted to say. I'm providing a lot of examples just to show you that it can be done, but you have to be, you have to dot your I's and cross your T's and make sure that you cover everything as accurately as you can. Some things you can have liberty with because there are gray areas in history, but other things you have to stick to like glue. So anyways, don't really have much more to add to that one, so I will stop it at this point and we'll move on to the next subject. And as always, if you guys have any comments, questions, concerns, feedback, etc. like that, please let me know. Thanks.